Okay, this evening we're going to show you how to remove a radiator out of a 2000 Nissan Maxima. Alright, first thing we're going to do is, I've already started on it, but what you do is you take the clamp off this hose. This is the radiator fans here. You take this little clip off the end of this hose. It fits right up on here like this, and I've already taken it off. Get you a pair of pliers. You can squeeze that with your fingers. Take it off, and then it goes in this hole, and you can just slide it out through the hole once you take the clip off, and then we'll put it back in when we get ready to put it back together. Okay. You know, then what you need to do is, I've already started taking these clips out, but I got a little knife or a little screwdriver, and you take the middle clip, stick it under there, and pull the little piece out. And then once you pull that out, the base comes out too. All of it will come out as one piece, and there's two of them, one here and one here. Now, this has a couple sensors hooked to it. Right here is a, I guess it's an airflow sensor here, one of them anyway. And you pull it out. You can either pull the sensor out of the ductwork, or you can take the clip off and pull the sensor out. I just pulled it out. And this, you can either take 10mm bolt out, or you can just unplug it if you want to, but I'm just going to move it to the side because it's not a big deal. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these 10mm bolts out of the fans that are bolted to the radiator. I've already got them started. They're 10mm. Now you be careful when you put these back in. You may need to add a washer to them or something. So just in case, you make sure you put the bolts in that came out, because if not, it'll go all the way through and it'll punch a hole in the radiator and mess up your radiator. So make sure the bolts that come out of here are the exact same bolts that go back in. You don't really have too many bolts take off here, so it's not a big deal. Alright, on the fan, you take a pair of pliers or something, and you mash this clip together right here. I got a pair of channel locks. Mash the clip together, work it off the hose, off the radiator, and then you're going to pull the hose off the radiator. Move the hose out of the way. There'll be a little antifreeze come out of there. Okay, now we're going to take the fans off. We have to disconnect the wires first. You just push down on the clip right there to take the wires out. Both of them, because that's wiring harness that's got to come loose. Okay, now to get the wiring harness off, don't be in a hurry and don't try to force anything. Get the wiring harness off, you get your little pair of pliers and you'll squeeze this. You might even be able to do it with your thumb or fingers. You'll squeeze this together and it'll come right out. I'm not going to get pliers, I'm just going to use a knife real quick and just squeeze them together. And you just squeeze these two little ends together, and you can use a pair of pliers and grab it, or you can grab it with your fingers. I had it mostly with my fingers already. That's why it came out so easy. Don't try to jerk it out, because you won't be able to put it back in there if you tear them up. And then the fans, once you get the wiring harness off of it, move it out of the way, the fans just slide right off. Now, best thing to do is disconnect your negative battery terminal before you start doing this. Just put the fans somewhere safe where they don't get kicked or dropped. And then you're just about ready to take the radiator out. What you have down here is two transmission lines on this one and the bottom radiator hose. Put your pan under there to catch the antifreeze as it comes out, and then we're going to take the two transmission lines off. You're going to lose a little bit of transmission fluid, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal. You check your transmission fluid after you put it all back together. When the car's running and hot at normal temperature is when you want to check your transmission fluid. Move this clipper, and what you'll do is you'll just move the clips around. You might have to turn. I don't know if I'm going to be able to turn the hose or not. Turn the clip, no. So what I have to do is I have to get a screwdriver. I'm actually going to use my little knife, and I'm going to use my fingers to squeeze that thing together. That might not work. Let me try something. Let me just go ahead and get a little pair of pliers to get that. Okay, I got one clip off, and I managed to turn this around. You can stick a tiny screwdriver in it and turn it one way or the other. Be very careful. I'm putting in a new radiator, so I'm not really much worried about damaging it. But if you're taking your old radiator out and putting it back in, then you want to be careful, even more careful with it. And you'll squeeze your clips together. There's a special tool they make for this, but I've never used it. But it does make life a lot easier. Sometimes, depending on where it is. And you'll turn this and pull it off, and it's going to be stubborn because it's been on there a while. As a matter of fact, okay, now I got the hoses loose mostly. They're stubborn. You're going to have to be patient and just twist them, keep twisting them back and forth until you twist it off. Now when you get them off, best thing to do is raise them up high and prop them up somewhere, because if you don't, transmission fluid will keep pouring out of them. So find somewhere to put them and stick them in there and let them stay there till you get through. The last thing we're going to do to get this radiator out, fairly simple. We're just going to take this radiator hose off here, like we did the top radiator hose. We're going to squeeze the clamp together. Now, if you change it out, you can put on screw-on clamps, which would be a better scenario. Let me put a tray underneath this to catch the antifreeze. Okay, we're going to pull this bottom radiator hose. You can just hold the clamp together and pull the hose off. They don't generally stick to the plastic radiators too bad, so the hose should come right off. And I got a pan underneath here to catch the antifreeze. Probably the best thing to do, especially if you have animals around or something like that. There wasn't too much in here because it had a leak already. Okay. Now, we'll pull these top radiator mounts off of here. And this job is all but done. It's fairly simple. If you hadn't ever done it, it's going to take you a little longer. But if you've worked on cars before, this job, pulling this radiator, take you probably 30 minutes to pull it out. Okay, I got the nuts off. Put these up here, and that's it. That radiator just comes right out. Nothing to it. And just do everything just the opposite that you just did to put it back in. It's not a complicated radiator. There's some radiators that are a whole lot more work to get out. All right, I'm gonna start putting. Okay, we're gonna put the new radiator in. Now you'll have to take the. Some radiators come with them. This one didn't, so you have to take the rubber mounts off the old radiator and put them on the new one. Don't forget to take the rubber mounts off, because it'll beat the radiator to death and tear it up in no time if you don't have the rubber radiator mounts to put that back in. Make sure you put them back into those slots. Put them right back in there. And then start hooking up your hoses. I'll hook up the radiator hose first because it's giving me a little bit of a problem. It's still leaking, so the hose is. So. Okay, I got the hoses on. Got the radiator hose on, 2 transmission lines, and put the clamps back on them, or you use the screw-on clamp if you want to. And I have the radiator mounts up top. This one's okay. It's in decent shape. This one's messed up. I'm gonna replace these mounts later. That'll be easy. But if the rubber's messed up in them, it's best to replace them so the radiator doesn't move around too much. Now we're getting ready to put the fans back on. And the fans at the bottom, they fit into these little slots. So make sure that when you put the fan back on, the piece that's sticking off on the bottom, those will go into the slots. The one right here, this is the bottom of the radiator fan. Okay, the fan's going pretty easy. Whatever you do, make sure you don't hit the radiator, the core of the radiator, with anything, because it's not hard to punch a hole in the radiator. And you'll know you have it in the slots because the bolt holes will mount up. And you can kind of look and feel underneath it to see that you have them in the slots too. Okay, we got the fan bolted back onto the radiator. I'm sorry. And what you want to do, plug them in, You got these little prongs here that go back in the holes, and push them in. Push them both in. That way they lock to the radiator. No danger of them going out in front of the fans or something like that. So now we got the harness back on there. All that's left to do is to put this piece back on the air intake, the radiator hose, and now when you put antifreeze in it, there's a little bleeder screw back here. Sometimes you don't have to use it on the Maximas. There's a little bleeder screw right down in there. Looks on top of that housing, and you'll open that bleeder. Okay, had a bleeder screw back here that I was showing you. Now you may or may not have to take that bleeder screw out. It's right down in the hole there. I mean, loosen it up. Don't ever take that bleeder screw out. That's it right there, okay? Don't ever take it all the way out, because you're just going to cause yourself a lot of headache if you do that. All you need to do is loosen it, and it'll let air out of the cooling system. Now, on a lot of older cars, you don't have to do that, but on a lot of the newer cars, you know, Toyotas, Nissan, Chevys, there's a bleeder screw on that housing, and you have to bleed the air out of the system to get it to not overheat. What you need to do is run the car until it's normal temperature and the fans come on. If the fans come on right away, you don't have enough antifreeze in it usually. But just run the car and get it to normal temperature. Keep checking your gauge. Make sure your gauge is not showing overheating. And then if you can't get it to stop overheating, just loosen that bleeder screw some, and it'll let the air out of the cooling system. And then and the antifreeze should go down in the radiator when you open that up. And then just keep running it until the fans come on and it's normal temperature and everything is right. Because if you take off in it right away and it's got air in the system, you're going to wind up overheating it and maybe messing up the engine or something. The key is patience. Don't be in a hurry. Just be patient. I put everything back together, the air duct work, brackets, everything's together. It's a pretty simple job. I'd say you can take it apart in 30 or 45 minutes and have it together even quicker than that once you take it apart and you see what you did. Just make sure you hook your sensors back up, and when you loosen them, if you have to loosen the bleeder screw, sometimes you don't have to, but if you have to, make sure you tighten it up. Whatever you do, don't over torque stuff. Just tighten the radiator to where you know it's tight enough it's not going to come loose. You only actually have 4 bolts, 2 radiator mounts and 2 bolts to hold in the fans. It's not complicated. And this bolt over here, the bleeder screw, when you tighten it, just snug it up. Make sure it's not leaking. Don't over tighten anything or you wind up breaking something, then you'll have a lot of headache. And that's how you install a radiator in a 2000 Nissan Maxima. And this covers a lot of other vehicles too, especially the bleeder screw part when you get through draining your system for anything, not just a radiator. You flushing it or whatever, for anything. So, and radiators all go in a little different, but just make sure that they don't have a bleeder screw and you don't have to bleed them off. That way you don't overheat it. And that's it.